right here, baby.
Who work as hard as us? Nobody.
It's camp time. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 62nd Kansas City Chiefs training camp, the 11th in St. Joe, Missouri. And after a one-year hiatus due to the pandemic, the Chiefs are back in St. Joe, back on the field, and back on the field in the rain. I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs. Thanks for joining us live this morning, along with Chiefs reporter Matt McMullen. And the excitement and the anticipation, not only for the season and this team, but just being back. And, of course, this is a big weekend in the National Football League, because throughout the entire league, Matt, people are celebrating football being back at camp.
It's back together Saturday across the NFL. And Mitch, this is how it's supposed to be, right? I mean, I remember being a kid coming up here with my parents, with my friends, early in the morning, waking up at 6 a.m., getting some coffee, and just watching the Chiefs go out there and practice. And last year was fun. You and I were out there at the facility. No energy, no atmosphere at all, just guys practicing football. And we love that kind of stuff. But this is how it's supposed to be. Fans watching this team get ready for the season. The energy has been palpable throughout the past week. And even though it's raining, dodging some a bit today, we're getting a little bit wet, but we're out here for you all. It's worth it for these fans. They're having a great time.
And it's a bit ironic, but kind of poetic, the fact that it's raining today. We've seen this in years past where Coach, two things here. Andy Reid loves the fans. He knows that there are fans out here that have traveled 8-9 hours with a family to be here. He's going to try to accommodate them as much as he can, still getting his team ready. Remember, every day matters with Andy Reid. But secondly, he almost loves it when he can get out of elements like this. Tyreek Hill was out here ankle deep in rain a couple of years ago thinking, I hope this works. But Andy actually references this later in the season to his team being, because think of those December games with the divisions on the line, or a win-or-go-home game in the playoffs. Those are never usually good weather.
Well, this is football. When are conditions ever perfect? You're playing outdoor football, and we've seen it over the years. Think about the snow game against the Broncos a few years ago. Patrick Mahomes is a snow guy. We figured that one out in that game. But also the Jaguars game a few years ago. Downpour of rain. This team was ready for that moment. We've seen a lot of very hot days out here, like 100-degree days, and those are tough as well. But I think the guys are actually kind of glad this is happening because it's 70 degrees right now, much cooler, getting some good work in. You have to get ready in different kinds of conditions, and we're seeing that today.
Yeah, the team right now, as you'll see it, they're in basically dress rehearsal. They'll do a lot of they've met, but they're going through things they're going to run later. We're in the team period. So it's just the pattern that this team gets in throughout the practices. But we also, this is the first of several live streams we're going to have for you throughout training camp. Missouri Western's done an amazing job. So is the city of St. Joseph. But there's the new berm. This is an addition. If you've been here over the 10 previous years, that was not here. This berm was put in by Missouri Western State University and allows probably 2,000 more fans and even to be distanced to watch practice. So you can even be accommodated even further.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like a stadium effect out here. If you've been a regular up at camp, you know the berm right behind us is the place to be. Great vantage point of practice. In a normal year, autographs and things like that. Not this year, but in a normal circumstance there would be. Well, now replicate that on the far side. If you get here late or you want to see that side of practice, you can go over there and have a great vantage point. And for the players, like I said, a true stadium feel where they feel like the fans are all around them. That was kind of a forgotten area way over there. You couldn't really see practice very well. That's a thing of the past now.
We're going to be here over the next 3 weeks, basically. You can be as well. And again, this is a fan-friendly place. A lot of families come from all over throughout the kingdom and as far away as Michigan so far. And we've seen others as far as from Pennsylvania. If you want to experience this in person, though, you get your Chiefs. Think about going to a game, just a little bit cheaper. Get your training camp tickets now. You go to ChiefsKingdomRewards.com. ChiefsKingdomRewards.com. All fans must secure, this is a big change now from years past, you must secure a ticket in advance to enter camp, and all tickets will be mobile. So we're expecting sellouts here in St. Joe over the next several weeks. So go ahead and get your camp tickets right now. Pick your day and get your camp tickets. You can get those online. But think about coming to a game. You can do it on your phone, on your mobile app, and you get the QR code and come in here. But this is going to be, in many ways, I think, the best camp ever.
I totally agree. And The team is hungry. We know that. The Super Bowl loss has this team feeling hungry to show that they're still the best team in football, and the fans are hungry. I mean, it was raining earlier today, and the line was, like a mile long over there, and people are just standing in it. They're like, we're not leaving. We're ready to go. We're going to this camp, and that's why I'm so glad that we're outside here today, but totally agree. This camp, I feel like the last several years with Patrick Mahomes especially, every year gets better and better. The atmosphere, the energy out here at camp is more exciting, and we're feeling that already.
3 straight AFC championship games, Super Bowl 54 championship, 2 straight Super Bowls, 5 straight division titles. That's tied for the all-time AFC West record. So if the Chiefs can do it again in a 6th year, it's never been done in the history of the AFC West. And so the question is now what? What have we seen? You and I watched every OTA. What have we seen? We've been here now over a week because we were here with the quarterbacks, the rookies, and the injured guys. But your first thoughts as you've seen this team over the last couple of months and what we anticipate for 2021.
Well, the biggest thing is the offensive line, right? Because we know what this team can do at the skill positions and at quarterback, on defense, in the secondary, but the biggest question was the trenches, particularly the offensive line. How is it going to look? How is it going to gel? A lot of moves along the offensive line this past offseason, and so far, it looks pretty good to me. Creed Humphrey at center looks really good. Joe Thuney, Orlando Brown Jr., you know all of those names, but the big story so far for us, Mitch, Trey Smith, 6th-round pick out of Tennessee, could be the steal of the draft. He fell in the draft, could have been a 3rd-round pick. Many draft experts thought he would go as high as the 3rd round, maybe even the 2nd round. Falls to the 6th round. The Chiefs get him. He's looked awesome so far. He plays a violent brand of football. He brings an edge to this offensive line. For me, he's looked really good.
Yeah, this O-line is like, it's the old adage, right? Something old, something new, something borrowed, something red. In this case, because it is a mixture and a mishmash of things that Brett Veach was doing over a span of about 45 to 60 days. The Orlando Brown trade, as you mentioned, Joe Thuney, a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Then the young guys, they become an intriguing story. Leray Duvernay-Tardif comes back after his opt-out year. Austin Blythe has got a lot of time in this league with the Rams. The Chiefs bring him in. There's going to be a lot of competition, a lot of depth. Lucas Niang basically is like a redshirt draftee. But one thing that's impressed me about the offensive line so far and watching them this summer and so far after a week and a half, their ability to move. Think about Andy Reid in 2013, 14, and 15. Think of Rodney Hudson at center. When they were able to move, Andy Reid runs the screen game better than probably any coach at any level. The most unique screens I've ever seen. But, Matt, to do that, your offensive linemen have to be able to move.
And one thing that was so significant about yesterday's practice is you think about the offseason program, so OTAs, minicamp, those are passing camps, essentially. There's practice limitations where you can't really work on the run game in those offseason practices. Well, yesterday, there was like a 20-minute segment of practice dedicated to just running the football and screens, things like that. And it's not just good work for the running backs, it's good work for the offensive linemen, doing exactly what you're talking about, getting these guys moving out in space. They look really athletic, and that's exciting. I mean, offensive tackles, I know we throw the ball a lot here in Kansas City, but they're more than just pass blocking. You need to run block and also get out in space on screens when you have players like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, a player we're very excited about in this backfield. Those guys can do things in space, but you need your offensive linemen to get out there ahead of them to create big plays, and we're seeing that so far. Very excited about this athletic offensive line and what they're showing so far this week.
Later in the show, we're going to feature the defense up close, specifically the linebackers, the defensive line. But as much as we can talk about offense and talk about that this has been the NFL's best offense for sure over the last couple of years, honestly, I'm most intrigued in watching the defense over the next 3 weeks because mention the words of excitement, anticipation, and coming to training camp. That's what I feel about this defense and what I saw this summer. I think Spags was really busy, Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator, from February 8th to this moment, because there's a lot of new to this defense.
A lot of new, but one old thing that I think could be even better this year is safety Juan Thornhill. And we saw how good he was his rookie season, made numerous all-rookie teams, I think PFF, Pro Football Writers Association of America, lots of all-rookie teams. He was really, really good. Tough break, tore his ACL in week 17 of that season, didn't play in the postseason or the Super Bowl. Last year, it's a credit to him, he got back. He didn't miss any games. Really says a lot about his work ethic, testament to him. But he admitted a few days ago that mentally it was still tough. I mean, these things take a long time to get over. Trusting your knee. It's not just that it's actually repaired, it's that you trust it. You know it in your mind that you can make the same plays. He said he just wasn't there last year until maybe the end of the season, but he feels 100% now, and we're seeing it out in practice. Great interception yesterday, and it wasn't just one that came in his lap. I mean, it was a tip ball that he moved his body to the left, adjusted, made a diving interception. That's the kind of play we saw his rookie year, and I'm really excited about this defense this year if he can be what he was as a rookie, because he was a stud, still a very young player, and he's looking very good so far in this camp.
I remember seeing him after the Super Bowl 54 victory in the locker room. He did not play. Remember, he tore his knee up. And he just felt like, he was happy, but he wanted to get that done again. Nobody's hungrier to win a Super Bowl in Super Bowl 56, than Juan Thornhill. Okay, if we're excited, what do you think the chairman and CEO of the Kansas City Chiefs thinks? Because he is fired up to have his team back here in St. Joe and at training camp. Earlier in camp, I had a chance to talk to Clark Hunt. Here's his thoughts on this camp and something new that you can also experience at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. Chance to talk to the chairman, CEO of the Kansas City Chiefs, Clark Hunt, and I'm going to use the word excited a lot here, but just the excitement level of being back here and having fans.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's great to get training camp underway and turn the page to the 2021 season. But I can't think of a better place to do that than here at Missouri Western State. The facilities here are really amazing. The staff does such a great job of taking care of us. And I know the team really feels like it has a chance to be at its best by having training camp here. There's a bonding process that takes place over the next 3 or 4 weeks as the players, sleep in the dormitories together, have their meals together, and then, of course, are out here on the practice fields.
You emphasize the fan experience so much, and truthfully, it's right behind us. I mean, Missouri Western brought in, what does this do to have this basically a stadium effect here?
Yeah, it really does. Walking down here this morning, I was like, well, it looks the same, but not quite the same, because we've got a new berm down here at the end of the field, which gives our fans a chance to really space out. In past years, we've had a handful of fans down there, but it's not been a great place to watch practice from. And today we had a number of fans down there, and I think on the days that we have big crowds, it's really going to allow the fans to come and space out, even though we have a big attendance.
One final training camp question, because I've noticed even in the last couple of years, being the best team in the league, say it humbly, but it's there, the family aspect of this camp, the little kids, the families and groupings, what have you noticed about that and that experience for them?
Yeah, well, I reflect back on my own experience growing up and coming to training camp with my dad, and just how special that was. I mean, it was literally bigger than life. And as I look at the kids, that were here today, even though they weren't able to interact with the players like they have in a typical year, they were loving it. They're here getting a chance to cheer on their idols and do it from very close proximity. So very, very special for the children. And as I said, it makes me reflect a lot on my youth and getting to do that with my dad.
A couple of questions now just about the fan experience at the stadium to transition here and what's happening at Arrowhead. I'm going to start with the Hall of Honor and just the investment that you and the family have made to make the Hall of Honor even better. What should fans expect in that new Hall of Honor?
Yeah, well, first of all, going back to the renovation of the stadium in 2010, we were thrilled to be able to introduce the Hall of Honor, because it gave a place in the stadium for our fans to come see the legends who had helped build the Kansas City Chiefs, our Chiefs Hall of Famers and the great teams of the 1960s and early 1970s. We had a chance to really share that with our fans. Well, frankly, after a few years, the Hall of Honor had gotten a little long in the tooth, and we recognized a couple of years ago that we needed to bring it into the modern era, and it's going to be a completely different experience, very much technology-driven. A lot of big screens where you can access information about your favorite players, favorite teams, a chance to really appreciate the history of the franchise, get a chance to see the Chiefs who are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So it's going to be a really, really special experience, and I can't wait to showcase it to our fans when we get to the football season.
And another Lombardi trophy and 2 Lamar Hunt trophies. Final question, and it deals with the renovation of the locker room. Now, this is something the fans may not see, but what does that mean for the players to redo and bring that locker room up to speed?
Yeah. Well, when Arrowhead was built back in 1972, it had one of the best locker rooms in the National Football League. Even though we've renovated over the years, it was still very much old school. And so we've brought our locker room up to date. It's got all the bells and whistles that our players are used to. Frankly, many of the big college programs have had better locker rooms than we've had in recent years, and that's not going to be true anymore. We've redone the training area. It's going to be first class. We have the brand new lockers with all the bells and whistles. So I think the players are going to really love it, and hopefully it helps them play better on Sunday.
Well, a couple of things there, Clark Hunt, talking about just we mentioned it, the improvements here at camp, fan-friendly, and then, two, I'm so excited to see the Hall of Honor. And we'll get to see the new locker room, too, but that Hall of Honor is going to be epic.
It's going to be sweet, isn't it? I mean, think of the rich history of this team, decades of history here in Kansas City, founding team of the AFL. It should have a great shrine to that history, shouldn't it? Inside GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. We're going to see it. It's going to be so awesome to walk around. Also, we're making a lot of history right now and in the decades to come with the great players on this team. So it should be a lot of fun. I cannot wait to see it. We haven't seen it yet, but I can't wait to walk through there and experience it with the fans. And the locker room, too. That's going to be awesome.
Added to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And, yes, there's another Lombardi trophy to put into that Hall of Honor. Hey, we appreciate you joining us live here this morning in St. Joe in the rain, but you can follow us every second of your life. You realize that.
If you want to.
And tell your employer, hey, I'm going to spend the next 4 hours on my app. So I've got my Chiefs app. Just let them know. We'll give you excuse for it. But your headquarters for everything Chiefs, wall-to-wall, 24 hours, breath-to-breath, is Chiefs.com. We'll have not only weekly photo galleries, and Steve Sanders is the best in the NFL, terrific photographer and his staff, but all of our 65 TPT crew. We're bringing it out all the time. You've got articles every day, sometimes several articles pumping out.
Doing my best.
You can follow us on social. The franchise is back. That episode, oh my gosh, so good.
Awesome.
The award-winning franchise show. So you can just live with us every second of your life. You can just go to Chiefs.com, and we're very proud of what we do. But our job is to let you know about your favorite team and one of the best teams in the National Football League every moment of your life. All right. Speaking of every moment counts here in camp. That's why Andy Reid is so superb. This team reminder is 20-5 in September. The best team in the NFL out of the gate in Andy Reid's first 8 seasons here. 7-1 in opening weekend games. That all starts right here. It also starts with the linebacking core. That's where we're going to go right now on this morning to a group. There are 9 here in camp. An interesting discussion here with these guys. But to me, the big story so far is Willie Gay Jr. in his second year.
We had a feeling in the offseason Willie Gay Jr. was going to have a big season this year. And he'd have an opportunity in this camp to show that he could be a frequent contributor on this defense. And, yeah, we're seeing it so far. So we talked to him yesterday, and he explained that last year was difficult, understandably so, because rookies didn't have OTAs. They didn't have minicamp. They're looking at their iPads trying to figure out what the playbook was and trying to get comfortable. But you can't do that in football unless you're actually out there doing it. So they showed up at training camp last year. Once again, no energy from fans or anything like that. And they tried to do the best they could. But the truth is, Willie Gay was not fully comfortable in this defense until midway through the season. He told us that yesterday. But now he's had a full season with the Chiefs and the scheme in Steve Spagnuolo at defensive coordinator, and a full offseason program with OTAs and minicamp, getting ready for this camp right here. And he looks really good. He looks fast is what's exciting me the most. It's not just his ability as a thumper. It's also in coverage. We've seen multiple times so far where he has came out of nowhere and made a play. Yesterday, we saw one in 7-on-7 drills. Tyreek Hill was wide open. Usually that catch is made in the flat, but Willie Gay Jr. comes out of nowhere, bats it away. Very exciting thought if you're a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, I put it on Twitter, and you embedded it into your article on Willie Gay Jr. about the fact that this is 2 days ago. His explosiveness, but his understanding as the rain falls even harder here in St. Jude. These are big old drops. Hey, listen, if we start complaining, then we got to answer to Big Red. Big Red goes, play through it. Have you got some toughness? Let's go. What's it like in playoff time, right? And the linebackers got to play when it's tough. But for Willie Gay Jr., he becomes what the new linebacker in the NFL looks like, because you have to have guys that can cover, still play the run, still think all the stuff you could do for years past with the bigger linebackers. But the days of the Brontosaurus is over. You're looking for the Raptor-type linebacker.
Outside of quarterback, linebacker may be the most difficult position nowadays in pro football. Maybe corner, but just because of all the different things you have to do at linebacker, because you're totally right. Just being a big burly guy who's going to go in there and stop the run, that doesn't cut it anymore. You have to do just about everything, and that's what's so exciting about Willie Gay Jr. Coming out of college, we knew he could be that because he was so athletic. I believe PFF coming out of college gave him like the top coverage grade in the country among all linebackers. Yep. What? It's incredible when you have his frame and his size. But last year we just didn't really have a chance to see it yet because the guy was just getting comfortable. It's hard playing pro football. But now that he's comfortable with the scheme, comfortable with his teammates, and trusts his instincts on the field, he can really let his pure athletic ability out there. And we're seeing it so far. Very excited about Willie Gay Jr. in this defense. And think about Damian Wilson. He's no longer on this team. He had over 600 snaps last year at linebacker. You have to find a guy to fill those snaps. Willie Gay Jr. could be that guy, and he could do it even better.
Yeah, he can play in the rain, too. Just saying, we're playing in the rain. You think we can't play in the rain? Let's go. But those coverage skills in this day and age in the NFL, it's not a luxury. It's a necessity. Now let's get into the rest of the core. And Anthony Hitchens is back to be the linchpin in the middle of that defense. This guy's now in his 8th season. Unfortunately, he's had a hamstring here problem the last couple of days, and so he's missed early on. But you talk about a steady cat right in the middle of that defense, that's Anthony Hitchens.
Absolutely. And if you're trying to find silver linings, we have seen Ben Neiman out here quite a bit playing middle linebacker. Good reps for him, good experience, good depth there in the Chiefs linebacking core, but certainly want Anthony Hitchens back. And you're right. It was difficult for Anthony Hitchens because he comes into the Chiefs 3 years ago, different scheme with Bob Sutton, had to learn it. And then all of a sudden, Steve Spagnuolo comes in and it's a new scheme once again. But now this is his 3rd year with Steve Spagnuolo's system. He knows it better than anybody, and he is really the linchpin of this linebacking core. You're so right about that. He led this linebacking core in defensive snaps last year. Need Anthony Hitchens out there, and when you have young linebackers like a Willie Gay Jr., like a Nick Bolton, who we'll talk about, you need that leader, that fearless leader who knows exactly what he's doing in this scheme. That's Anthony Hitchens in this defense.
The other sneaky guy, and you know, I like to give credit to people who Chiefs fans don't know about. I'm going to give Travis Hogan and his groundskeeping crew.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, to have this field, this is the exact field that's at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. A Bermuda ryegrass mix. They work on this thing all year. It's like Augusta National. Nobody's on this except for the time the Chiefs are on it during training camp. But a day like today, your field has to handle the rain. It has to drain and keep the guys on the field without risk of injury. So our grounds crew at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium, this is the field they also use here in St. Joe, so we need to mention that crew. But we also need to mention Ben Neiman. This is a guy now that's played a lot of snaps. You talk about coverage, you talk about intelligence, you talk about a guy who's a key piece in that linebacker room, I should say, and made one of the sneaky plays you forget about in Super Bowl 54. 2 sneaky plays in that game, and that's the way Ben Neiman is. Okay, he's steady, but he'll come up with a play every now and then that can decide a game.
This is why I love watching practice with Mitch, because we're up here and we saw Ben make a great play in 7-on-7 yesterday. I mentioned he's playing a lot of middle linebacker with no Anthony Hitchens out here. And Tyreek Hill, once again, in the flat. Ben Neiman trusted his eyes and made a play on the ball, his incomplete pass. Very nice play by Ben. And Mitch's first thought is Ben Neiman is so important to this team because of the plays he makes like that, and on special teams, like you just mentioned. It's the hidden undercover plays. And what we were talking about was you have good teams and you have great teams, and your ability to have guys like Ben Neiman who can go in there and play 300 special team snaps for you, play a lot of defense as well, go out and start if he needs to. You need those kind of players. The Chiefs have that in Ben, and he began as an undrafted free agent, finding him from the University of Iowa. Really just an integral part of this linebacking core that maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves, but very important to this team, and we're seeing it throughout this camp and over the last couple of years.
The 2 sneaky plays. Go back and watch Super Bowl 54 for the 54th time. His play on kickoff coverage during the onslaught of 4 straight stops and taking the lead, very underrated. Second, his pressure on a blitz of Jimmy Garoppolo. Right? Mm-hmm. You'll see that led to a defensive stop and the Chiefs winning Super Bowl 54. Both Ben Neiman plays. Now, let's transition to who's next behind those guys. I'm going to get to Dorian O'Daniel in a second. Well, let's go to Nick Bolton, who was the top pick for the Chiefs in this draft. And we've seen a lot of Nick Bolton so far. What about Anthony Hitchens' hamstring injury and what that's done for the opportunity for Nick Bolton out here?
Well, it means more reps with the ones. It's next man up, right? And we want Anthony Hitchens back, but that's for Nick Bolton. It's like, hey, you're going to develop out here. You're going to grow. This is your chance. Go run with the ones and figure out how you're going to become a player in this league. And we saw a little bit of it a few days ago. He was described as a Tasmanian devil at Mizzou just because he's running with his hair on fire all over the place, creating big plays. I think 16 tackles for loss over the last 2 years at Mizzou, 202 tackles, and most defensive stops of any linebacker in SEC play in each of the last 2 years. Well, we saw why yesterday, because on a blitz he's sent after Chad Henne, I believe, gets around the blocker, gets both of his hands up, bats the ball down at the line of scrimmage. Those are the plays he made look routine at Mizzou, and if we can get that out of our linebacking core, so exciting, because you think about Willie Gay and Nick Bolton growing together in this defense. Very intriguing thought if you're a Chiefs fan.
And my apologies to you, Matt, and all these fans, because I've not mentioned this group is coached by Matt House, a superb linebackers coach. Keep in mind, he brings some of the college game. He was defensive coordinator at Kentucky. What a great person for Nick Bolton to learn under, who can relate to Nick because Matt's been in the college game not that long ago, but he has transitioned in a great way to the National Football League. This group is coached very well.
So Tyrann Mathieu a few days ago was talking in context of Legeria Snead, but I think it applies to this situation as well. Lots of players come in this game with lots of potential, lots of talent, but it kind of fades away. You talk about their potential for too long, and before you know it, it never really happened. Well, these coaches make sure that they get the full potential out of their guys. And we're seeing that from Steve Spagnuolo, or really from Coach Reed, then to Steve Spagnuolo and throughout this defense. And you're right, Matt House is a tremendous coach on this team, comes in a few years ago, and we're seeing these young linebackers grow. You could not have a better coach for Nick Bolton to learn under.
All right, let's get into the rest of this linebacker core. Dorian O'Daniel, 4th season. Seems, wow, DOD's here in a 4th year. But a guy, too, that's getting a chance to rep. Plus, don't overlook his ability to be an outstanding special teams player.
Coming out of college, he was described as a madman on special teams. We've seen that over the last couple years. The reality is guys on special teams do not get the credit they deserve. And we don't really ever hear about them. You don't see their stats because they don't accumulate a lot of stats. But they're so important. Think how important Dave Tope's group has been to this team since Andy Reid got here. I think 1 kicker punt return touchdown allowed the entire 8 years Coach Reid has been here. That's incredible. And that helps win games for you, really, in the end. And DOD has played 70% or more of the special team snaps in each of the last 2 years. And according to PFF, say whatever you want to about their metrics, but he was the top graded special teamer on this team last year. Says a lot about Dorian. Doesn't play a ton on defense, but we know he can if he needs to. But it's his special teams ability that's so important on this team.
All right, movie reference here because Rob Riggles, of course, one of our biggest fans, right? He's part of our Chiefs comedians. Was great in the movie called The Other Guys, all right? Will Ferrell, Marky Mark.
So underrated.
I love that movie. Let's get into The Other Guys. And to me, it starts with Darius Harris, a guy that was on the field last year, late in the year especially. Keep in mind the Atlanta game, the Charger game in Week 17. Darius Harris is being counted on by this team, but to me, he starts the discussion of the other guys.
Well, he was in the middle of one of the biggest defensive plays of the year last year. You mentioned that Atlanta game. Remember the forced fumble that Willie Gay Jr. had that helped turn the tide of that game? Darius Harris recovered that fumble, and he was in that game playing a lot of linebacker for this team. Played quite a bit in Week 17 as well. He was a UDFA from Middle Tennessee State a couple of years ago. Came in injured, though, so missed his entire rookie year. Then last year had a few chances to show what he could do, but this is really his opportunity now. It's like, all right, you made some plays at the end of last season. You were in some practices. How can you translate that to this camp and into this season? And we'll see if he makes the team. I mean, I have the numbers here. Last year, the Chiefs kept 5 linebackers for Week 1. In 2019, they kept 6 linebackers for Week 1. So you know the core guys. But it's important to talk about guys like Darius Harris because one of these guys is going to make the team, and there's a good chance he'll be relied upon at some point during the season.
Who was it? Samuel L. Jackson was doing the narrative. Like, you know those guys, but it's the other guys.
The other guys.
All right, now some more other guys for you. Emmanuel Smith comes to mind here, listed as a 1, so he's been in this program for a while. But he, too, gave a chance. He's been given opportunities. But Emmanuel Smith is a guy that we can throw these guys in here together. Amari Cobb, Riley Cole, that fill out the 9-person linebacking class. But Emmanuel Smith is a guy that gets a little more attention. He's been around a little longer.
Check out my notes here, Mitch. Just the rain has gotten him. But, yeah, Emmanuel Smith's been around for a while now. He had a chance in the Saints game last year on some special team snaps, but ended up getting hurt. But he has some talent. You don't keep a guy around for several years unless you believe in his talent. So we'll see what he can do out here. He's healthy now at camp. See if he can make this team. And Riley Cole, you mentioned him out of South Alabama. Interested in him. He was projected to be a 6th-round pick by many draft experts. Ended up not going drafted. Chiefs got him as a priority undrafted free agent. That's value right there. That's like an extra draft pick. And you think about it, would you look at a guy like that differently if he was a 6th-round pick? Probably. And you get him in your camp, he's a draft pick as a UDFA playing for this team. He had 28 pressures in each of the last 2 seasons for the Jaguars at South Alabama. So he can get after the quarterback. He was there for a long time, like 6 seasons, because he had some injuries. But Riley Cole is a guy to look out for. Could be a very strong special teams contributor. We'll see what he can do in the preseason.
And on a rainy day at training camp, the key, lamination. Okay, just saying, lamination.
Yeah.
This is why Andy Reid's got that laminated board that will go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Like, I want one of those. I go, Coach, you got to give me that laminated sheet, because down in the left corner is his good stuff. He saves that for when he needs it. But this linebacking group, so we think of nickels and dimes with defensive backs, right? Because the Chiefs and the NFL has become almost every snap is a different personnel group. But when you think of nickels and dimes, 6 DBs, 5 DBs, you also have to think of the linebacking core, because that group can rotate as well as much as the DBs.
Well, and it gets back to our point about how linebackers have to do just about everything nowadays. I mean, for the most part, you can't go into the game and be just a one-trick pony. You have to be able to cover. That's just the blanket statement. You have to be able to cover as a linebacker in the NFL now. And we've seen the Chiefs going towards more of these kind of linebackers that can be athletic and go out and cover. We saw that with Willie Gay Jr., seeing it so far. Nick Bolton is growing in that area, but they're confident he can become that kind of player. And Ben Neiman, once again, does not get enough credit. Pretty solid coverage player.
Yep.
So you have to be good at coverage as a linebacker on the team and in the NFL today. And we're seeing the Chiefs kind of go more toward that with this youth movement they're having. But we're looking to see these guys grow even more in coverage, particularly Nick Bolton. That's going to be a big part of his development. Looking forward to seeing that out here in camp.
Why am I super interested in watching this defense? Based on what I saw this summer and what I've seen so far and what I want to see the next 3 weeks. Now we talk about your interview with Chris Jones, because I think that's where the Chiefs Kingdom needs to go to start studying what could be dramatically different about the 2021 Chiefs defense.
So super excited about one of these storylines of the offseason. It's Chris Jones playing more defensive end. Not just defensive end, everywhere along the defensive line. And we caught up with Chris a few days ago to ask him about this and why this transformation for him to play all over the defensive line is possible. All right, we're joined now by the president of Sack Nation, of course, talking about Chris Jones. It's hot out here, but he's enjoying a snow cone. He's ready to go. Chris, this is year 6 for you. It's hard to believe the time's flown by, but what's the energy like? What's the excitement like for you coming into year 6?
I'm old. No, it's fun, man. I'm good. I'm glad to be back around St. Joe's. Have the fans here. Very fortunate, man. Have my brothers back, be back in the presence of the team, playing football, doing what I love to do.
Now, along the same lines, we know what kind of player that you are on the field, but you mentioned it, you're the old guy now. There's young guys in this room, guys like Josh Kando, Mike Dana, Turk Wharton. How are you embracing the leadership role on this team in that defensive line room?
It's exciting, man. You got a lot of young guys who's eager to learn, eager to get better and exceed their expectations. So my biggest thing is get 1% better every day. You know, we challenge each other to get 1% better and challenge each other to get the best out of one another. And we do that, we keep that up, we'll be on the right pace.
Now, speaking of old guys, big acquisition for the defensive line. Jaren Reed joins this team, 5 seasons in Seattle. Last 3 years, he has 19 sacks, one of the best pass-rushing defensive tackles in the league. Now he joins you. What have you seen out of Jaren so far, and how can he help this team?
He's a very consistent guy. I was fortunate enough to roommate with the guy. We had a Royal Rumble the first day. He set off the alarm, blew the commode up, but you know, we're on the right track, man. He's been very big. His presence is big on the 3-tech, and he's very dominant. And I feel like him coming to this D-line is very exciting.
And adding him allows Spags to move you all over the place. Since OTAs, you've been playing defensive end, defensive tackle, doing whatever you can to get after the passer. What's that opportunity mean to you, and how much better can this defense be if you're going all over the place along the defensive line?
That's why I'm so fortunate for Jaren Reed to come here. I've been preaching the Spags by moving me around on this defense, and by acquiring Jaren Reed, we was able to do some of the things I've been preaching about, and it's fun. It's fun. Fun for me to move around on this defense. Fun to watch those inside guys dominate the line of scrimmage, and I think this is going to be an exciting group to watch.
Chris Jones, awesome. Really appreciate your time, man. Enjoy that snow cone.
Thank you, guys. And cone of ice, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Great interview, Matt. Now, to me, and listening to that and what we've seen, this is as much about Jaren Reed as it is Chris Jones, meaning Jaren Reed becomes now the North Star of navigation. He's your beacon point for this defense, and all these atoms kind of split off Jaren Reed.
The guy truly changes everything, and I think he'll go down as the undercover huge signing of the offseason for this team. No pun intended, or maybe there is one. But you think about Joe Thuney, Orlando Brown Jr. These are huge acquisitions that we all knew needed to happen, and they did, and we're so glad they did. But Jaren Reed kind of came out of nowhere. The Seahawks cut him. He's available on the open market, one of the top pass-rushing defensive tackles out there, and the Chiefs are like, you want to come to Kansas City? And he's like, sure, and it truly changes everything. as I mentioned in the interview, 19 sacks over the last 3 seasons for him. And what he does is if the Chiefs want to move Chris Jones around, they still have a powerful, menacing, pass-rushing defensive tackle in there in the middle that can do things for them. And you can do all these different formations. You can have Chris Jones on the edge and Jaren Reed in the middle, like I was mentioning, and you maintain that force. Or you can have both of them next to one another. Imagine that if you're a center and an offensive guard, having those two guys come at you. So the possibilities are truly endless with these guys. But Jaren Reed is the key to it all. He's going to open up this defensive line exponentially.
We love sacks for fantasy football, but the reality is Jaren Reed also can become a clog in the drain. He's that run stuffer there, and some stats where the Chiefs need it. Let's just be honest here, okay? When you look at first down efficiency, last year the Chiefs were 20th on defense. Opposing rushing yards for 4 yards or more. The Chiefs were 21st in the league, allowing 47% plus of those runs. You stone those runs now, all of a sudden it's 3rd and long, and Spags can really turn it loose. So that leads me into asking you about Derrick Noddy. I think one of the more underrated players on this entire 90-man roster.
All right, so bear with me. I have a stat here to try to articulate how good Derrick Noddy has been for this team. First of all, he's always available. This guy never misses football games. He's always out there. But as a run stuffer, he is really, really good. So Cynthia Freeland at NFL Network does all the advanced stats. She found out that Derrick Noddy shut down opposing ball carriers at the highest rate in the NFL last season when within 3 yards of a rusher. He was the best. Nobody was better. If a running back or a wide receiver on some kind of screen was running by Derrick Noddy, he got them every single time. So what's important to mention about the addition of Jaren Reed is it's not like, all right, Jaren Reed and Chris Jones, nobody else matters. These guys are going to rotate in, and Derrick Noddy is going to play a bunch, and he's important to this team, particularly in running situations for the other offense.
If Jaren Reed opens up opportunities for Derrick Noddy opens up opportunities for Jaren Reed. Again, very underrated. Frank Clark. I mean, you have images of Frank Clark sacking Ryan Tannehill in the AFC Championship game in 2019, or how he became dominant at the end of Super Bowl 54. But he and Jaren Reed are reunited now. And that might be the big news, because when they were together last in Seattle, it was good for both of them.
Frank Clark's best year as a professional was back in 2018 with Jaren Reed right next to him. And it really, the Chris Jones point will help Frank Clark as well, because if Chris Jones is playing more off the edge, what's that going to do for Frank Clark's double teams? You can't double team both of them. So that's going to help Frank Clark quite a bit. The addition of Jaren Reed, once again, for everybody, is going to help everyone's numbers and everyone's production.
One guy that's popped out to me, and I think to both of us, is Mike Dana. And to see what he did already last year, okay? Think of his sack. I think it was in the Raiders game. But then what he's done so far, it looks like he's elevated his game. How important is Mike to this defense?
He's huge. He's one of the guys I'm most excited to watch on this defense this year. 16 pressures in 2020, 2.5 sacks. Had the sack against the Chargers. Also was really good in that Miami game. Remember that? Chris Jones got the safety, but Mike Dana was right there. And I believe Dana had a sack later in that game as well. So Mike Dana had a really nice rookie season, kind of under the radar. And what I love about Mike is that, if you remember, he was at Central Michigan, I believe, before he transferred to Michigan. And he was a beast. I mean, he had incredible numbers. Probably would have been like a 3rd or 4th round draft pick if he had come out with high expectations. But he's like, no, I want to challenge myself at the next level before I go to the NFL. Transfers to the University of Michigan. Really crowded defensive end room there. Didn't really play a ton, and his numbers weren't as high as he would probably like. But he looks back on that experience. He's told us before, that was good for me. I don't care that my numbers weren't where they were supposed to be, because I got good experience playing at a higher level of football. I relate that to what he did last year. Played pretty well. I mean, wasn't really in the spotlight much, but played pretty well. And now he's figured out he can play at this level with these guys. What's he do now this season? You know, he has the mental fortitude to handle this kind of transition. We've seen that during his college career. That's what I'm most excited about with this guy. And he has the talent. We know he does.
And all these pieces we mentioned before helps Mike, and Mike helps those guys. All right. Does any of you play Yahtzee anymore? Do you ever play Yahtzee, the dice game?
Sure.
All right. Rattle the dice and then roll it out here, because there's several names. And Alex Okafor's back.
Yeah.
I don't think the Chiefs Kingdom thought that Alex Okafor would be on this roster, but he's out here, and we have seen him flash. When you look at Alex's career, he fits this picture and what Spagnuolo wants to do.
So this is part of a bigger point here, but Alex Okafor fits in it. You think about Chris Jones playing a lot of defensive end for this team, and when he's not playing out there, it's probably a guy like Mike Dana getting some more reps. Frank Clark on the other side. But then there's all these other defensive ends who are good, capable players who we can rotate in and have fresh legs, and you rely on them. You know they can get after the quarterback, but they don't have to go out there and play 60 snaps a game. And Alex Okafor fits into that. I mean, what, 8 sacks in 21 games over the last 2 years? He's experienced, and when he's healthy, he's a good pass rusher on this team. And you're telling me that when right before camp you can add an Alex Okafor to this edge room with the talent that's already in here that we'll talk about? Very exciting stuff. Alex Okafor is a solid player, and they're not going to need him to go out there and get 15 sacks. Doesn't need to do that. Go out there and get 6-7 sacks as a rotational player. That's going to help his team a lot.
And if he's your rotational player, ooh, look out, because, you know, he looks like a starter that could be a rotational player. Taco Charlton also seems to me almost like a copy and paste of these last couple of sentences in our discussion. Similar kind of player, a former first-round draft pick, but Taco is capable. I think that, and we've seen him flash at times.
So he was kind of in that role last year where he was the rotational guy with the fresh legs, and when he got significant snaps, he was good. So he had 6 games last year where he had 10 or more snaps before he got injured midseason, and in those games, he recorded multiple pressures, and 4 of them. Think about the Patriots game, how good he was in that game. The Chargers game as well. He made some huge plays on 4th down in both of those games that helped win those football games. Taco Charlton is talented. First-round pick for a reason, and once again, we're not counting on him to go out there and be a 15-sack guy. Just contribute 5-6 sacks. Have a couple of games where you get a ton of pressures, and that will be a huge contribution to this team. So once again, the depth at defensive end on this team for guys that can come in here and be solid contributors really has me excited.
Then there's some guys you kind of fold your arms and look at them really closely, like, what do we have here? Josh Kando, to me, is that guy. The draft pick out of Florida State. Injured at FSU, but if you go back and look at his highlights and watch his video, you're going, wow, okay, we see the potential upside with a Josh Kando.
Okay, bear with me once again here, but Josh Kando is an athletic freak, and it's hard to articulate that, but some people that are much smarter than me kind of found a way. So there's this metric called relative athletic score. I don't know how it's calculated, okay? I have no idea, but I'm trusting these people are smarter than I am and that their information is accurate. They calculated his relative athletic score, and out of 1,361 draft-eligible defensive ends since 1987, he ranked 59th. That's pretty good. I mean, are you kidding me? Of all those defensive ends, this guy, his relative athletic score, whatever it means, says that he is super athletic, more so than almost all the players that have come before him over the last 3 decades. Now, his numbers at Florida State weren't crazy, but that's what you do. You get a guy with great athletic tools into your camp with your coaches, and you see what you can do with him. You can't teach athleticism, and he has it. And now the point is, can you learn the system? Can you learn the scheme and the fundamentals? Because he has the athletic ability. Now it's just learning it out here in camp.
I'm at fault, like others, to try to compare somebody to a player. It happens in the NFL all the time. But when you think of Tano Passanio, who did good things for this team for the last several years now with the Saints, but one of the more underrated metrics in sports is wingspan. We list him by height and weight. I honestly think every athlete ought to have wingspan. And that's what you get with Kando, because you and I both said it when the Chiefs drafted him. This looks like a Tano Passanio type player. And to me, that's a compliment.
Yeah, it's certainly a compliment, because once again, you can't teach wingspan, can't teach height and speed and size, and he has all of these things. I mean, he has all the tools. The guy was a 5-star recruit out of high school for a reason, just total athletic freak. Once again, what you want now is just your coaches get their hands on him, teach him how to play football here in Kansas City. At Florida State, he was in a really crowded room of really talented players, and it just didn't really happen for him. But now you're a pro, and you have these athletic tools. So get with the coaches, get with Steve Spagnuolo, get with Brendan Daly, and figure out how to be a player in this league, and I like his chances.
How good a fan are you in the Chiefs Kingdom? That's what I want to know, because if you're a real deep down Chiefs Kingdom card carrying holder, you will know who Tim Ward is. In the Week 17 game last year against the Chargers, remember, the Chiefs are at 14-1, and Coach sets all the starters. One of the guys I was most excited about to see on the field and play in that game was Tim Ward. He's been around the franchise for a while, but when you see him on the field, now you're going, because he's wearing Tano's old number. Now he's 92. But who's 92? It's worth a discussion.
So last year was cool. Tim Ward's very similar to Darius Harris in that he was an undrafted free agent a couple years ago, I believe Old Dominion, and he was injured. He didn't play the entire season. He was injured coming out of school. So we knew it was a redshirt year for Tim Ward. We saw him in the cafeteria. We saw him around. He's going to have his chance in 2020. Well, most of the year he's on the practice squad until finally Week 17, he gets his opportunity, and it was so cool to see a guy make the most of it. He had 3 pressures and a sack in that game. He was all over the place. And that game was so much fun. I know we lost, but just seeing these young players make the most of their chance, and Tim Ward was one of those guys. So now the impetus for Tim Ward is you were really good in that Week 17 game. People know your name now. Can you come into this camp and prove you belong on this team and that you can be a rotational player on this team moving forward? That's the mission for Tim Ward. Camp is only a week old, but he looks pretty good so far to me. But that Week 17 game was what really showed the potential this guy has. Now the question is, can you translate it to 2021?
So out here, when you come to camp, and remember, you've got to go. You sign up online. You can go to the Chiefs app and find it. You can go to Chiefs.com and /tickets /training camp and make sure you get your tickets. You must have it. Be on your phone. You can check in and get the QR code. We'll zip you in here and come to practice. But when you come here, you go, well, who's 92? They'll also ask, who's 96? Because 96 looks like he's got a chance and he's pretty good. And so Damone Harris, to me, is a little bit in the Tim Ward discussion, but there's some talent in Damone Harris.
And the team clearly likes him. I mean, that says something if he is on this team consistently. He's been around the team a while now, since 2019, 5 appearances over the last 2 years. He can do some things, and he fits kind of into that realm. If you're going to try to have an additional defensive end and an additional pass rusher, Damone Harris knows the defense. Steve Spagnuolo knows Damone Harris's skill set. So when you have a player like that that's been around the system, may not blow you away with his numbers, but you can rely on him in a pinch to go out there and play Chiefs football.
Let's talk about the other inside guys. We mentioned a while back, because when you look at the defensive line, there's really the outside-inside guys, and then there's Chris Jones, who's both. Okay, the inside guys behind Derrick Noddy and Jaren Reed. And this discussion is Tershawn Wharton. This is a key piece to this football team. You Missouri S&T graduates out there watching this morning while you're working on algorithms are going, yeah, he's ours. The first S&T player to make it in the National Football League. Wow, is he valuable to this team? And you talk about rotational players, that might be the definition for him. The Wikipedia page of rotational players is Turk Wharton.
I mean, what a steal. An undrafted free agent in Turk Wharton. Are you kidding me? Look at his numbers last year. 22 pressures. That ranked 4th among all rookies and 2nd among all rookie defensive tackles. He was on the PFF midseason all-rookie team last year. Listen to the guys he was next to. Chase Young, drafted in the 1st round. Derek Brown, drafted in the 1st round. And Alex Highsmith, drafted in the 3rd round. You get Tershawn Wharton as an undrafted free agent from just down the road. Incredible. He's a bit of a leaner defensive tackle, so he can play that defensive end role, too, if you need him to. He can do a lot of different things for this defense, and, man, what a steal he was for Brett Veach.
Again, perfect compliment to those guys we mentioned earlier that play in front of him on the depth chart, anyway, in Jaren Reed and also Derrick Noddy. Colin Saunders, popular player when you look at it in his 3rd year, has been on the field in significant snaps. And so he's next in this discussion on that defensive line.
Just a tough break for him last year. He gets injured in week 1, hurt his elbow, and was injured for several weeks, and then Turk Wharton kind of came on. So that's just the way it works. So he was hurt for a part of the year and then just didn't play a whole lot the rest of the year. But we know what Colin Saunders can do. He's a 3rd-round pick for a reason. The guy was a beast in college. This is his chance now to show what he can bring to this team. That's the beauty of a training camp and a new year is it's, hey, everything's in the past. You know, you can go out here and earn your spot and show that you belong to be on this team. And you follow Colin Saunders on Twitter, you know that he has that mindset. He's coming into this camp showing he belongs here.
And they're St. Louisans. All right? I spent a lot of time in the offseason in St. Louis. The Chiefs fans are growing in St. Louis. And several St. Louisans on this team, and we just had a couple of them. Then there's some other guys kind of round out this group. Malik Herring, Tyler Clark, Austin Edwards. When you look at this group, 15 players, I think, you're thinking, well, you keep 5 outside. You start playing the numbers game. 6 outside, 3 inside. But a really good group together. And, again, a group coached by Brandon Daly, who won all those Super Bowls with the New England Patriots. He made an immediate impact on this football team when he came here with Steve Spagnuolo in 2019. It's really one of the underrated stories, and that's the story of Brandon Daly.
It definitely is, and I think what I would want to say to a lot of these players who maybe fans don't know a whole lot about is that there will be an opportunity for these guys to make this team and to make a difference. And Tershawn Wharton, who we just spoke about, is the ultimate example of that. Tershawn Wharton did not have any edge on any player last year when he came in. undrafted free agent from a small school. He had to earn his spot on this team and prove that he belonged here. And to guys like Tyler Clark or Austin Edwards, guys we haven't talked a whole lot about that signed reserve futures deals in the offseason, and this is their first chance with the Chiefs, that's what I'd tell them. Go out here and play your brand of football, and you might have a chance to make this team and contribute at some point. Turk Wharton showed us it's possible. There's a lot of talent in this camp, some great coaching. This is your opportunity to make this team.
Andy Reid gets it so much. Again, today, being out here in the rain, he gets it because we've got a great group of fans that are here, and many of them travel from along. They set their vacation dates to training camp. Andy Reid also gets it because he relates to the players so well. Every player. He can relate to a Malik Herring. He can relate to a Tershawn Wharton. He can relate to a Tyler Clark. Why do I say that? Because it takes your point here in the fact that even if you don't make the team right now, there's the practice squad. He will help you get to another team. I've never seen a coach do it like this guy gets it, but he gets it for all these guys. It's like he identifies with all of them. So even though everybody we mentioned is not going to make the team, in fact, half will not, it does not end their National Football League life necessarily.
And I'd also preach patience, particularly with a guy like Malik Herring. Haven't talked about him yet, but he tore his ACL at the Senior Bowl. Probably would have been a draft pick. Chiefs get him as an undrafted free agent. He's just doing rehab stuff out here, but think about Darius Harris. Think about Tim Ward. They had that redshirt year where they couldn't do anything really on the field with their teammates, but they were patient. They waited for their opportunity, and they eventually got their chance to show what they could do. Keep Malik Herring's name in mind for next year. He could make some plays on this team.
I have asked Patrick Mahomes for his towel that he uses when he wipes to keep his hands dry. I've not heard back yet from him. I texted him while we were in break, because those big drops are coming back here in St. Joe. But hey, we mentioned the field can drain. Coach wants him to be out here. He actually likes them to train. It's almost like the military. He wants them to train under all circumstances. So
plus lamination
on this lamination.
Yeah,
it works. We've done this before. It's time to do it again.
Paper not so good.
Not so much. But let's talk about some of the days ahead in training camp as well, because we've got Family Fun Day coming up a week from tomorrow on 8 August. That's always one of the highlights. We're going to have these live shows for you throughout camp because, again, camp today looks a little bit different than camp next week and camp the following week because of the progression, the way Andy Reid wants to prepare this team. So it's good just to hang with us all throughout the next month, essentially, and just the preseason games, it all works together. But Andy Reid is a maestro at putting together the orchestra, and the rehearsals are right here.
It's so much fun to see how this all pieces together, and we were just watching it. You think about it starts off with individual drills, then you have an install of the playbook, but it's just offense, just defense, then some 7-on-7 drills, no linemen, just work throwing on air, things like that. Then you do team 11-on-11, the stuff that fans get most excited about. That's real football. It builds a foundation, and you just build on it, and until before you know it, you have this week 1 team going against the Cleveland Browns, and they're ready to go. Not every coach is like this. Most training camps, think about how difficult it is to organize these things. Sometimes it doesn't work. A lot of coaches don't last long in this league because they can't figure out how to organize camp. Coach Reid gets it, and if you love this kind of thing, come out here, say hi to us. We're right up here at the media tent, and watch, really, like you said, how this orchestra comes together.
Okay, one of the things to watch at camp when you come is OLDL. When they're doing that, 7-on-7 is also going on. 7-on-7 is intriguing to watch just because it is the passing game without the linemen. But you see the incredible skill of every guy on this field, and then the amazing skill of guys like Tyreek Hill, who has no equal in this league, really.
No.
Or very few.
No, there's no equal, even faster than Usain Bolt. We confirmed that yesterday. But, yeah, there's no equal of Tyreek Hill in this league. And if you want to come see some touchdowns, some big plays, 7-on-7 is the place for you. And great work for the corners and the linebackers on this team. Talked to Dan Sorensen yesterday, and he was talking about the challenge of facing the Chiefs offense every day. The reality is this defense is not going to face an offense like this ever on a game day. This is the toughest offense they're going to face. We know that. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Machole, Hardman. This is the best offense in the league. You're not going to face an offense like this on Sunday. So if you can at least try to keep up with them out here, that's going to help you a lot when Sundays come around. I used the analogy last year. It's like shooting a weighted basketball. It's kind of what it's like when you're facing other teams in this league, and no disrespect to them. Lots of good offenses in this league, but there's no offense like the Chiefs, and if you can keep up with them, you can keep up with anyone.
But you're playing D-back without the defensive lineman. There's no pass rush, and sometimes it's not even fair. This is you and me trying to guard Steph Curry with our hands tied behind our back. But you do see the skill, too, that's required to play corner and safety in this league. So it's a great point that you make, and it's a awesome because you're going to see this no other time than when you come to training camp and see what is required and essential to be a defensive back in this league. What you'll also see, though, is the sixth sense from Patrick Mahomes and working with his receiver core. And not just Patrick Mahomes. Chad Henne will get his turn, number 4. You go down the line, the other 2 quarterbacks, Shane Buechele in this camp, the rookie out of SMU, or Anthony Gordon out of Washington State. But in 7-on-7, you get a sense of the sixth sense that is required between the quarterback and the nonverbal communication quarterback to receivers.
And we saw that in that video we put out a few days ago that has like 2 million views of Patrick Mahomes' his first no-look of passive camp. That kind of stuff is impossible for just about everybody, but you're right. He has that sixth sense where he knows where his guys are going to be, and he can just no-look wrap the ball around the defender, who Anthony Hitchens on that play was actually in great position to make a play. Just nobody can, and you don't face quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes. The guy's one of a kind, and 7-on-7 is really where you see him thrive, and that relationship built. We saw it, we hear some cheers right now. We saw it in the offseason with a guy like Noah Gray, who we'll talk about in later shows, but 7-on-7 is really where you create a rapport. You create a relationship, a chemistry with your quarterback if you're a receiver or a tight end. And we're seeing that really throughout this camp so far with guys like Noah Gray, Antonio Callaway, Cornell Powell, lots of playmakers on this team. 7-on-7 is where you get to know your relationship with Patrick Mahomes, Chad Henne, and the quarterbacks on this roster.
Byron Pringle with the big catch, the door hinge.
Love it.
Just had a big catch there. The other thing is you mentioned in talking about what gets done in 7-on-7, again, it's the passing game without the lineman. What's key on both sides, offense and defense, is communication here. So communication, as we look now at 7-on-7 and Tyreek Hill making the catch. Communication, especially on the defense here, because the defensive call is made, but many times there's the communication even right before the snap. So 7-on-7 is a perfect way for the defense to almost get it down to where it's rote learning, or it becomes part of their thought process without thinking. Doesn't make sense. Coach talks about that. You just get this down, but communication, especially the defensive side in 7-on-7, is paramount.
And I also want to mention the motivation these players are feeling, especially in these periods. It's a very cool day today, so it's not as big of a deal, but on these very hot days, Tyreek Hill was telling us yesterday that having the fans out here cheering them during these kinds of periods when they make a huge play or catch a touchdown, that's motivating. And they feel like when they hear the crowd going crazy for them when they score a touchdown in a segment like this, they're ready for 10 more plays. They can go for 2 more hours because they feel the energy of this crowd. So that's my plea to you all to come out here to training camp and to see this team live and in person, because you are helping this team get better and get ready for the season. And
Noah Gray with a catch. We'll talk about Noah Gray throughout this camp, but Noah Gray does something or 2 things or 3 things every day that gets your attention.
Oh, yeah.
Because it becomes a great compliment for Travis Kelce, who is fighting some back and hip tightness. And so the fact that Noah Gray's been a big part of this. But we saw earlier, too, and he's out there, Nick Bolton. We mentioned 54, number 54, the rookie out of Missouri. With Anthony Hitchens' hamstring issues, this is more reps than Nick Bolton would normally get at this time of the training camp. So this becomes as important for Nick Bolton as about anybody we're seeing here. And you can see Patrick Mahomes, who knew he had it, and then the pass wasn't caught. But 7-on-7 is fascinating to watch because it is something you see manifested on the field during the games. But if it doesn't happen here, it's not going to happen in the games. Yeah, and one matchup I was just watching just now was Legeria Snead versus Machole Hardman. I mean, how much speed is in that matchup alone? And Legeria's played pretty well against Machole there. Excited for a big year from Machole, but also excited for a big year from Legerius. Legerius was the top rookie corner in all of football last season. Chiefs get him in the 4th round of the draft. You know, Mitch, CBS Sports did a redraft of the 2020 draft a few months ago. You know where Legerius went in that draft? 7 overall. Chiefs got him in the 4th round, and you're seeing him out here today. And 81 is back. Blake Bell, the Belldozer, the pride of Wichita. Bishop Carroll High School is back on the team after, remember his run in the playoffs in 2019. He just made that catch. 1 year with the Cowboys last year. He's back with the Chiefs this year. And we'll talk about the tight ends. We mentioned Noah Gray as our camp live shows progress. But having Blake Bell back is bigger than people may think.
So one thing that we're really excited about is the possibility for multiple tight end sets on this team. And I went up and looked at the numbers. The Chiefs didn't do a whole lot of it last year, actually 10% less than they had in 2019. Just didn't end up using a lot of multiple tight end sets. But one thought that we've talked about a lot here is if you have, obviously, Travis Kelce, greatest tight end in the game right now, maybe of all time, then Blake Bell, a capable receiver and the top blocking tight end in Pro Football last season, according to Pro Football Focus. And then Noah Gray, add him in there. He had over 200 snaps in the slot for Duke last year, really capable playmaker. All of a sudden, you have a lot of playmakers at tight end, and that creates some mismatches for the defense that you have to decide. Nice catch there. You have to decide if you are going to put a DB on the field to cover these guys or a linebacker, and that opens things up for everyone.
88 is Jody Fortune. So he's been around the team for a while. They have now shifted him full-time to tight end. Before, he was like with the wide receivers, but he always had a tight end body. But now he's part of the 6-person tight end room and had made a nice catch there. He showed wide receiver skills in doing so. Chad Henne getting the reps now with 7-on-7. And if you were feeling tension in the Cleveland game and the divisional playoff victory, wow, Patrick Mahomes is out. How do you beat Chad Henne and make key plays at the end of the game to make sure the team gets to the AFC Championship game? I don't want to make more of it than it is, but it's this.
Yeah.
Coach Reed, and you can see him in communication with Chad Henne right now. All right, Coach Reed is Velcro to these quarterbacks. But this is why a Chad Henne can step into a game in a divisional playoff round and make winning plays, because of the way he approaches practices like this and makes winning plays.
And I'll take it a step further. He was ready in these practices for a game in Week 17 when he started for the Chiefs against the Chargers. How beneficial was that than having that experience going into that Browns game? But Chad Henne really is the epitome of what you want in a backup quarterback. He can go in at any moment. He can go out there and win you a football game, a playoff game, the first playoff game of his life. He goes in there in the biggest of moments, and no moment is too big for him. He's like, okay, we've got this. I've experienced. I know what I'm doing. And, man, that run on 3rd and long that he had, and then the subsequent pass to Tyreek Hill to ice the game on 4th down, those plays are legendary. And that's all you can ask for from your backup.
And now people go, well, what's this? Who's 6? Okay, that's Shane Buechele. And who are these other guys? And what's this? There's no developmental league in the National Football League. There's no single A. There's no triple A like baseball. This is as close as you get, and this is important to watch. Not just who of these guys could possibly make the team. Cornell Powell out there, the draftee out of Clemson, and the wide receiver core. But it's like who makes the practice squad? Who has potential maybe a year or now, for 2 years from now? I talk about crockpot guys. When I say that, it's a compliment, because the team thinks enough of you to keep you around, put you in the crockpot and slow cook, and you may come out a year, maybe 2 years, and become a winning contributor to this team. That's why these reps are important, and why you don't go to sleep and even watching the 3rd or 4th group in 7-on-7.
It's tricky talking about these young quarterbacks, Shane Buechele and Anthony Gordon, because we know that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football. He's here for the next 10 years at least. He's the man. Hopefully no one else takes a snap at quarterback for the next 10 years than Patrick Mahomes. But it's important to constantly be developing players. And Andy Reid is a quarterback whisperer. We know that. And there's nothing wrong. It's only a good thing if you are developing good young quarterbacks in this system, whether that be players that can grow into a backup role, players that you can trade to other teams and get assets back for them. So you want to develop good young quarterbacks. And these reps are so important, because in the season, it's tough to get reps with the 3rd and 4th team. So Shane Buechele right now, guy out of SMU, undrafted free agent. He was at Texas before he transferred to SMU for the last 2 years. Had a really nice season for 2 seasons for the Mustangs. He's a solid young player. And Anthony Gordon, who we'll see here in a bit, from Washington State, backed up Gardner Minshew actually back in 2018. Huge season in 2019, threw like 48 touchdowns, second to only Joe Burrow. It was crazy. Didn't hook on with the team last year, got released by the Seahawks before the season began, but he's now in this camp, and we'll see out of these 2 guys, does one of these guys have what it takes to stick with this team for a while and develop under Patrick Mahomes?
Kind of K-State day at the ballpark. We saw the big catch that electrified the crowd by Byron Pringle. We saw Dalton Schoen with the catch on that group. And here's Blue Springs native Darius Shepherd with the catch, former Green Bay Packer. Played at North Dakota State on those great runs in the FCS National Championships. That's number 9, making the catch there as the first unit gets to come back on the field. You mentioned number 1, too, in case you want to know about him, Jerick McKinnon, who's going to make a run to be that 3rd back in this offense that is so important that we've seen down through the years, different roles. Damian Williams, the run to immortality comes to mind. But now the first unit is back on the field. But the first unit, there's a mix and match of guys. And it's interesting. So Daryl Williams, the Mississippi State second-year player, is snapping here to Patrick Mahomes. Gives him a shot to be with the first group.
Well, that's once again another example of just get guys reps, see what they can do. There's Machole Hardman making a play. Man, his speed is so smooth. Daryl Williams, an undrafted free agent last year, a guy that has center and guard flexibility. Kind of one of the guys you don't talk about a whole lot along this offensive line, but a good, solid player, a player that could have been drafted last year on the practice squad all of 2020, and now here he is seeing what he can do with Patrick Mahomes.
Defensively, we have watched the corners very closely. We know about when you look at Shavarius Ward, we know about him and all the snaps. But on the right side, DeAndre Baker, former first-round draft pick of the New York Giants. He's number 30. Tore up his knee at the end of the regular season last year. I felt for him because he was getting good snaps. But that corner position as Tyreek Hill makes the catch in traffic. When you look at he and number 21, Mike Hughes, who also was a former first-round draft pick with the Minnesota Vikings, that becomes a camp discussion today and over the next 3 weeks.
So DeAndre Baker, the number 30 overall pick in 2019, and Mike Hughes, the number 30 overall pick in 2018. So two former first-round picks in this camp at corner. And really the thought is, what do you got with these two guys? Can they come in here and, with a change of scenery, really find their full potential? And both players, you can see why they were first-round picks. They're athletic, they have moves, they have skills. Oh, there we go. Juan Thornhill almost with the pick. I was talking about him earlier. He looks good, doesn't he? But both Hughes and Baker, the thought is those are Brett Veach specials right there. Former first-round picks, see what you got in them. And really, if one of those players can grow into a strong contributor for this team, that's a huge win for the Chiefs.
We talked about Thornhill earlier in the live stream. Juan Thornhill, the ripple effect of Juan Thornhill. If you can get the Juan Thornhill back of 2019, it turns both Dirty Dan Sorensen and Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, loose. Now, all of a sudden, those two guys can be unleashed if you've got a center fielder type athlete like Juan Thornhill with a 41-inch vertical jump. There's more to this story than just Juan Thornhill and what he can do for everybody else.
He's just such a good player, his rookie season. Such a good player, and it was the worst of luck what happened to him in Week 17 of that year. It just takes time coming back from an injury like that. It's so difficult. And he had moments where he played pretty well last season. Just he admitted that it wasn't his full potential. It wasn't what he did his rookie year. And now a full season removed from that injury, he's mentally ready to go. He has a fantastic mentor in Tyrann Mathieu, who's been through similar injuries twice and knows the mental toll that it takes. You have a guy like that in your corner telling you, hey, you're going to be okay. He just looks like a guy who's ready to go. He's smiling a whole lot and just making a lot of plays. And you can just tell with Juan, he's ready to go for this camp, ready to go for this year. And once again, we're seeing it out here.
How to make 7-on-7 real life. Hopefully we'll get a shot of Eric Bieniemy. He's calling in the play. You saw Patrick Mahomes back up a bit. You see this happen a lot during the regular season in real life as Blake Bell makes the catch on a crossing pattern. Eric Bieniemy, they're giving the plays to EB. EB radios it in like it's a real game. So Patrick Mahomes now is backing up. He's hearing the play come in from Eric Bieniemy, and he'll walk back into the huddle and tell his guys. It's what happens during the regular season games. It happens every snap, whether it's 7-on-7 or 11-on-11 at training camp. So there's a lot more that goes into just watching guys just run around and catch passes here.
And it's on the other side, too. You see Tyrann Mathieu get his fist up in the air right away after it wasn't actually a tackle, but would have been a tackle in a real situation. They take this seriously, and that's really a culture thing. You take practice seriously. You play hard, and you go 100%. And that translates to games. If you just go into practice being like, just 7-on-7, we're in shorts, we're not even wearing pads, this doesn't matter. That's how teams lose football games. But if you go out here and you're going 100% like Tyrann Mathieu is, it leads to winning. And if you're a young player and you see a veteran who's accomplished everything like Tyrann Mathieu has, and he's going 100%, oh man, I better go 100% too.
Again, you've also seen player rotation here, which is a staple of Andy Reid. Because people ask, well, who's the WR2 and who's the WR3 and the RB1? And, I mean, it's a mixture of things. It can depend week to week, although Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we're anticipating he's going to have a big year. But Daryl Williams on the field, we know how important he is. Oof. And even the cheetah can't catch up with that one. Maybe on a dry track he would have. But honestly, and two, there's a lot of option routes in this system, meaning there's a couple different ways you can go, and you have to read the defense and where they line up. But and now the twos kind of come back out there, and Chad Henne will get his reps again. But it's fascinating to watch it. If you get into the weeds and kind of nerd it out on this, you realize this is where winning football is made.
And you have a good point about wide receiver 2 and 3 and 4 and all that. Every week is different. There's not a clear-cut fantasy football, so-and-so is going to be the guy that has, the second most yards in the team and touchdowns and all that. The ball is going to be spread around. It's going to be guys like Machole, Hardman, Byron Pringle, all over the place. And that's the beauty of this team, is there's multiple guys who can make plays. Antonio Callaway is a guy that I'm excited about. He looked pretty good yesterday. Former player for the Cleveland Browns, had a huge season his rookie year, had like 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. Some issues the last couple of years has kept him off the field, but Antonio Callaway's in this camp. He's looking pretty good too. So lots of good players on this team at the skill positions, and 7-on-7 is where you kind of figure out who's going to emerge as that upper tier of guys who's going to get a lot of reps on game day.
Yep. And when you come to camp, and I know you'll be at camp, remember, different in camp this year. Go to Chiefs.com/tickets/training camp. You have to have a mobile ticket to enter the facility. But when you're watching 7-on-7, like we gave you the opportunity to do that today, have the mind of a dolphin. Be able to split your mind and watch OLDL. You know where I'm going, because it's the only time you'll ever see it. And it's really a big key to this team this year, and that is basically the collegiate wrestling of watching offensive and defensive linemen, hand-to-hand combat. And it's fascinating to watch it. I'm going to tell you, it's required watching. Watch 7-on-7 with your left eye, watch OLDL with your right eye, and that's what makes training camp so much fun. But we're going to have more live streams coming up, so hang with us, because, again, camp takes twists and turns over the next month. We will navigate you through all of those twists and turns.
We certainly will. Pads coming on next week, I believe Tuesday.
Tuesday,
yeah.
We'll be back with a live stream on that day. Pads.
Yeah, pads on Tuesday, and that's when real football starts. Talked to Orlando Brown a few days ago, and he's like, can't wait to get the shoulder pads on, because that's when the real ball players come out.
Yep, and we will keep you up to date on that as well. Plus, you can follow us every second of every day. We're very proud of our 65 TPT crew, because busting it to bring you, and it can be photos from Steve Sanders and his staff. Our crew is bringing you these live streams. The franchise is back. Your articles every day are a must-read. You're a must-follow. I'm just going to put that out there. Must-follow on Twitter, but Instagram, TikTok. We have some of the best TikTok features, but just follow us. Every breath that you want to take with the Chiefs Kingdom, we will give you that oxygen with all that we put out with our 65 TPT crew. So we're looking forward to it. Just getting things started here in camp. This team, I think, in many ways, I don't want to get ahead of myself, they could be better in many ways than the 2020 team. I think this 2021 team, we mentioned the defensive switches and personnel changes. I think defensively they could be more explosive and impactful. And this offense continues to move forward. This is an exciting football team that's your favorite team.
I want to second that opinion, because we know what this team can do at the skill positions with all the guys like Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Machole, Hardman, defensively guys like Tyrann Mathieu, Legeria, Snead. But where the Chiefs got so much better this past offseason was the trenches. And we talked about Jaren Reed, talked about Chris Jones, how he's moving around. This defensive line is going to be really good. And this offensive line with all the new faces on this team, 10 new players, including returning opt-outs along the offensive line, tons of competition, and that breeds growth. Can't wait to see what this team looks like with the trenches this year, because we know how good they are on the outside, throwing the football and getting after the football defensively, but the trenches are so much better this year, and that's pretty exciting.
We want to see it camp. Wave at us, but make sure, again, you have to have a mobile ticket to come to training camp this year. Easy to do it. Chiefs.com/training tickets /training camp. But make sure you got a mobile ticket. We'll see you at camp over the next 3 weeks. Thanks to Matt McMullen, a must follow, by the way, on Twitter. And again, we will keep you up to speed with your team all day, every day, with our 65 TPT crew. Thanks for joining us this morning here with our special training camp live stream. We'll be back with you on Tuesday. I'll write the letter to your boss. I got to go spend a little time with my guys at camp, take a break, but we will be with you first day of pads here at training camp in St. Joe. Thanks for joining us this morning. Let's go. Let's take this one back and head for Super Bowl 56.